Okay, Bill, welcome to GP and workflows. So the first thing, what is a workflow? A workflow is a way of having the system do notifications, do emails, send messages, and I'm not going to say do your job for you, but kind of eliminate you getting up and walking a purchase order across the room to get it approved, or finding out that you're over your budget limit and you can't figure out why your transaction won't go through. This right here will allow several things along those ways. So let's just start with something really basic, but it's basic but yet important. So, and just to clarify, is we had some technical difficulties on my side, so I have actually borrowed Mr. Quiggle's laptop so that I could actually do this. So starting off with your workflow setup is, again, depending on whether you're on O365 or whether you're on your on-prem. So all it's really looking for is your email address, your display name, and then your server name and the port it goes to. Now, this is pretty common for O365 to use this right here and the port of 587. It also requires that the SSL for the secured connection is enabled. Then after that, you put in your name and your password. And if you do the test email, we can do that again. And we will just send that to Mr. Kurt.
Alan, I'm sorry to interrupt you here. I just want to make sure that our audience here can see your screen. I'm seeing a few different little layouts here, but it looks a little bit small. I just see four little aspects here where I can see like your themes and where you're trying to present. I'm not sure if we can try and fix that. We can see. There we go. That looks better. Sorry to interrupt. Thanks.
No, you're good. Thank you. And then if I do a send test email and everything works out fine, is when I come down here and I open up my Outlook. There we go. We actually have a test email, comes in at 1:05. So this is your first way of saying, hey, can I make something happen? So once you get past the test email, then we have a few other things that we'll get into. That is the main setup that has to be done before you can do anything else. And this is one of those things where you may need your IT involved, but again, once they look at this, it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, I am not enabling email actions today. Email actions is where you can actually, through the email, you yourself, after it goes to you, do something. Because it requires the GP web service and it requires that to be on a server. This is one of the things that we cannot make our laptop think it's a server when it comes to this right here. So we will not show the enable email actions. And maybe that'll be a topic of another webinar that we do down the road, Emily. Excuse me. So after you do that setup, down here under workflow, you have a few things. The first thing you have to do is you have your work calendar. This is your work calendar where you can say by year, do I do Monday through Friday? Do I count Saturday and Sunday? You can put your down days on here, whether it be Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, etc. This is kind of like a calendar that the workflow drives to say, should I send an email between 8 and 5, or you can make these anytime you want. So these are, again, just filled in. That is a must to have it. And of course, with Fabricam, it's for the year 2027. The next thing that has to be set up, and I'm not saying it has to be right off the bat, but you can do these in a certain order. So here's a list of all the different types of emails and things like that that can go out. So out of the box in GP 2018, there is approximately between 15 and 18 workflows. So you'll see here we have some workflows that we could do by whether it be a SQL view, a time card, a task approval, purchase order receipts, or a PO approval. So here's a PO approval, and you'll notice, and I'll make this bigger for you. I hope everyone can see that okay. So we have our workflow approval. We have it that it's an assignment, purchasing, purchase orders. So we would actually get an email, or you would get an email saying you have a task assignment for purchase order. And here where you have the open paren and the parentheses, this is actually pulling data directly from your purchase order or from GP. So this acts similar to a Word template, if you want to call. So you can actually put in text fields, but then by doing this open paren, percentage, and the name would be something that you can get from either the document lines, from the body. It all depends on where it's at. But these right here come out of the system, should come prepared like this. So you should have to do minimum work with these. Then if you validate it, the validate's going to tell you everything in here is fine. I've got everything you need. I'm going to pick up your comments, the order amount, the dates, etc. And then you can also down here do some additional stuff where you're actually either taking workflow fields or other documents. So each of those has something along those lines. Now, why is that important? That's important for when we get to the next step. So in the next step, we're actually going to go to workflow maintenance. So in workflow maintenance, as you can see here, we have financial, which gives us the ability to do a receivables batch, I'm sorry, that was sales, a sales batch approval or a sales transaction approval. You have your financial, which gives you a GL account approval. So anytime a GL account has been added, if I'm really concerned about that, I can send it so that it sends the controller, you know, the CFO, whoever you want to. And then of course your general batch ledger. We get down into purchasing. Of course, then you have a payables, a transaction, your purchase order, requisitions, invoicing, even vendor approvals. And one of the other nice things that can be done is we can talk about payroll. You know, payroll's got a few things in here like payroll W-4 approval, some time cards. One that's used quite frequently, though, is under administration is the user security approval or user approval. Even your smart list designer security task, you know, so if someone assigns a role, like if we were to take the user security role, and I will come back in a second and actually create this workflow, if someone was to do that, we would actually be able to say, hey, anytime that someone is given the power user role, I want to know about it. So in this case right here, we're going to start off with a pretty basic one, which is your purchase order approval. So your purchase order approval always starts out with who are the managers that have basically access to do the approvals here. In this case, Kurt and myself are the managers of this. The next thing is after we do the save is we would actually hit the button to do a new workflow button. So the new workflow button, in this case right here, I might have put purchase order approval, but you can name the window what you want. Once that is done, you actually then are able to create steps. So before I get to there, we'll get down to some of these below. On the options, like when the approval, can I delegate tasks? So can I delegate that? Can I allow the originator to be an approver? I always require at least one approval, and I can actually then put in like an alternate final approver, someone who I know is here a lot, so that if everyone was out, we still have someone to approve it. But then we have this send notifications for completed actions. This right here is really what controls what goes out. So when I submit this, it could tell me that I want this message to be action completed, meaning it's been done. If I was to approve it, again, I could go out, and these are just some of the ones that are tied to here, but there are a lot of them under here. I can do a standard workflow. I can do the different things along those lines. And if I was to do one more like a delegate or even a reject. So you have the ability to set these up, and each of these could be different. I only really have the one that's active at the moment. Now, why is that important? It's important because if you were to do a step, so the step is actually saying what criteria is needed to set this workflow off. So in this case, okay, we'll go do this from another one. This is what I'm saying is every time we create a POA, always run it and always use the workflow management. So what that basically means is anytime I came over to purchasing, I go into purchase order entry. So instead of using the flows that are in the system, you see I must have some windows open. Kurt, if that opened on another screen, can you assist me and bring the purchase order entry over? Thank you, sir. Okay, when I do this now and I create it, you'll notice as soon as I create it now, we have the workflow templates up here. This is how you know a workflow is involved. So I take one like this, I create a new item. We'll just use a processor. And of course, this would be your common GP inventory situation. Let's give it a unit of measure. We're just going to do 1 because 16,000. Give it a site ID. And I can now choose to say submit. I can give it any type of message I want. Once I hit submit, you'll see that goes away. If I bring that PO back up, you'll see it's telling me up here the PO was created. It's pending tax completion. Now, what that means is I should have gotten an email. Excuse me. There we go. I should have an email, and that email should be telling me that I've been assigned a task. And here's a purchase order name. And if we open that up, again, Kurt, I'm assuming it jumped onto the other window. And if you brought that over, thank you, sir. You will then see, just like we looked in the email. So the task deadline came, the purchase order document, this because it's in blue here, this is a way to drill back on it. We bring in all the information, the additional stuff I needed. And again, if we had the actions and those things done, I wouldn't get this. I would actually be able to get the ability to go in and approve it right here. But if I forget to do that, or I don't like to do that, the other thing that happens automatically is this. When you first log into your machine in the morning and you go to your home page, you would see a list here of workflow tasks. Now from within GP, I can open it up. I could come in, I could do the workflow, I could do a task complete, which would approve it. I can put whatever I want in there, but you're also able to view the history. So I could see where this has went from, say, step A to step B. Now, I'm going to now take one and let's go do one from scratch so you can see some of the different options that we may have. So that workflow was pretty cut and dry. Anytime something is approved, I could actually go in and I could say, okay, I got that workflow, but let's say that I want to modify it. So I'm actually going to come in, excuse me, I want to actually come in and say, okay, so here's my payables transaction approval. We'll save this one. So let's come over here, and again, we're going to add our managers. And if you actually use the payroll, and HR setup and all that, you can do this based on the manager roles, and like, so Alan has to send his to Kurt because that's who he reports to, maybe things along those lines. And we're going to give Alan a shot. Okay, once that's done, now I'm going to create a new workflow, and that workflow is going to say something along the lines of over $500. $500. And we'll just do a simple copy paste here. I'm going to come down here and allow these. I'm going to come up and tell this the same thing. I'm going to tell it that when that is submitted, we have the same type of action complete. And there's several action completes out there based on what it is we're doing. So you would see that, and maybe we have an email for approval, maybe even reject. So that way, if I reject it, I can reject it back saying, okay, Alan, make that for $4.99 or split it into 2 POs and then you're fine type thing. Because maybe, there's some reason that we don't want to do that. We click OK here. And now we do a save. And now let's come back and let's add a step. So again, a step is a condition. So I'm going to call this step the approval. And I'm going to make this a task. And I want to say the action is required only when. So now I'm going to actually go in and create something along these lines. So if the transaction work amount, let's say, is greater than 500, I want to add it. You'll see here that I can say or, and maybe I have something different. Now, you can actually go in here and set these up so that you can make these more dynamic. You can make them based on, like I said, we talked about the roles that we do, but you'll see here you simply have all the required fields that a transaction has. Maybe I want to narrow it down to only by a vendor, so I can also say where the vendor ID equals. So I'm only going to approve these type of things if it's over 500 for a particular vendor. We say okay. We're going to save it. As long as we go in and we assign it first. So let's assign that to, again, we'll assign it to Kurt again. Say okay. There's some different things you can do here, and let's tell it to send the message of PM doc approval. And in that message, if we were to look into that message, you would then see that he's going to get something like this. There's deadlines, here's the numbers, here's the different things. And again, you can send replies to people. There's quite a few different things you can do with this. So we'll push this here. Let's save it again. So everything looks good. And now if I was to go into, let me just step here, get that out of my way. So I'm going to go into purchasing, transaction entry, and I'm going to do 2 of these. So let's do an invoice to Ace Travel. We're going to make this one $550. Make sure our distributions are okay. They are. Come back. Let's go ahead and post that one. And we're going to create a batch. A lot of this is because as many demos as we do, there's always something different. So let's come back. Let's make another one to Advanced Office Systems. We'll do the same type of things. This is say a calculator, and we're going to make this one just $480. And we'll save it. Let's close these. Let's go to purchasing. Oh, excuse me. We'll go down to payables batches. And let's do our lookup. Let's post it. What I would expect to see now is I would expect to see one task on my home page for ACE, but should not see anything for the secondary vendor because their purchase was under the $500 mark. We can get rid of this. Now if we go back to our home page, well, I guess we've got a little hiccup here. We should have seen a task here. Let's see if I actually got an email or did I really do something wrong? And, oh, good job. We will go back to, yep. I thought I activated it, but let's just take one more step. We got about 6 minutes left. Come on. Okay, we closed it. Yep. We've got you're right. So let's do this again. I actually wanted to show you that on purpose, that if you didn't save it, that you would get nothing. So it's a good thing to have here. So let's go back and try this one more time, because I'm going to go in and do another transaction entry. And I should have known that because my submit button wasn't there. So let's go ACE. We'll go 550. Let's batch it. So we're going to save this again. Yes. Document number. Okay, so now we'll come back and let's actually submit this. Okay, and now we'll do this one more time. And let's close out of here. Now let's post. We don't need to see any of these. Okay. It's fine. So now you can see we have our payroll transaction approval. If we opened it up, it would actually let us go do it from in here. We could go and approve it, but that's in batch recovery. But the other thing would be is down here, we should actually see again, forgive me here, it is, there we go, thank you. There we go, you'll see that we have the email in here now. So there's a lot of different things you can do, again, whether it be by the amounts, whether it be by a particular user. So just think about it. There is, again, 20-something different approvals in there that can be done, and you can add your own and create them. So if you want to do something with, you know, whether it be a new customer being entered or something like that, and you only see it in there, you can go in and create your own. You just have to create the email messages and everything from there. Are there any questions on how the approvals work? You can always contact us here at support@iscorp.biz. You can contact, you know, whether it be by phone, email, anything that you need to do that we can help with. We've got several people who can do the workflows and would be just happy to assist you if you ran into any type of issues. Emily?
Thanks, Alan. I'm not seeing any questions here right now, but I'm glad that you mentioned where they can reach you for any assistance. Again, that's support@iscorp.biz for anybody. I'll just wait in case there's another question. Otherwise, we'll get this rocking and rolling here. And like I mentioned earlier, this is being recorded. So for all of those listening, you can go back and watch it again. It will be up on our webinar library on our website shortly. And then again, of course, the ones that didn't make it to join us here today, but were registered, they'll go back and look at that as well. Last call for questions here. Alan, I am not seeing anything, at least right now, so we really appreciate you. Great job. Love this awesome workflows work. And with that, I think we're good to go. Again, I'm not seeing any questions.
Perfect.
All righty. Well, thank you
again.
guys all
Everyone
again.
have a great day.
Perfect. And you do the same. Thanks, everyone. Bye.